Look at this last week's print. I saw a landscape in it. I'll show you the printing process again and how I worked it out. Hello print fans! Before I dive into the piece and work it out to become a landscape, I will show you last week's printing process again first. With this piece of plexiglass, I created decalcomania effects on the gel plate with two different types of acrylic paint. The first layer I make with the golden high flow fluid acrylic paint in black, not to be confused with the open slow drying paint that I use often. As you can see, you don't actually have to add water to get the effect that I see a lot in other videos these days. The fluid paint makes a resist with the gel plate itself, and I'm actually not sure whether that is due to the fact that I have often used oil to clean the plate with, or if the plate itself is so tacky that it repels the fluid acrylics. I am currently working on another video about oil and water resist techniques. Pressing the plexiglass on, and I have to work quickly for the paint not to contract too much. Now this looks rather messy, but wait until I have printed it. I have registered the gel plate to be able to print this with a larger paper. And this is the decalcomania effect that the fluid paint makes with the plexiglass. It is totally different from the decalco effect I get with regular acrylics. The paint lines are thin and actually look like they are painted with a brush. This is already strongly suggesting a landscape, but I want to add another layer and another color. Now here comes the golden open slow drying acrylic paint and transparent red iron oxide. Let me stress again for those who don't know my work yet that this paint is so great, as you don't have to be in such a hurry with the printing. That paint doesn't dry on you. Of course, you can also get a retarder for your regular acrylics, then they don't dry as fast. Note here that I am pressing on the plexiglass with the remains of the last black print on it. And although this wasn't planned, that adds very well to the landscape as a darker ground. I am purposely pressing on the plexi only in a few spots, so that the decalco will show in variations later and not the same all over. As I have not registered the first print very well, I am printing upside down here, putting the first layer down face up and then pressing the gel plate on where I want it. It is best if you put the gel plate on a sturdy and solid piece of plexiglass so that it doesn't wobble around so much. It can drive you crazy, that nasty gel plate. Yep, that worked out just as I wanted it. I have a very different, very fine decalco effect. You can see it better later when I work it out. Actually, later is now. Starting with a colored pencil as usual, but I will also employ water-soluble graphite paint, which is a first for me. I have decided that there is a little creek or pond at the bottom of this one, and I'm making vertical and later horizontal streaks that are suggesting water reflection. Also defining the bank here a little darker so that it looks 3D. 3D? Man, what stupid stuff I'm talking sometimes. Please excuse me. As I want the bank shadows to be darker, I'm using a fineliner here. This one is like a brush. It is fantastic. It works with the black decalco perfectly and feels like you're actually using a brush. Of course, I don't want to destroy the original Decalcomania print feel, so I'm not using this fine liner too much. and it is a very thin line I'm always walking on. Can you see that? Because I never know when to stop, or actually I often know when to stop, but sometimes I just think I've done too much and I changed the original print too much. Like here in this area, I think I did a little too much. It could have done with a little less. So now I'm coming in with the new stuff, the Derwent Graphitint paint pan pocket set. You can get them as pencils, I think, also, but in this case I wanted to try this one and use it like a watercolor. Sorry, it's a bit off camera. I'm actually using the ocean blue here, and you can already see that it's more of a graphite effect than really the blue coming out. It's very subtle, and that's just my thing. It's a very, very light blue, and you can't really tell it's a blue, so that's what I want. And I want to paint something like a sky here, that's why I'm using the blue, which you can't tell. And some of these shapes I'm just using as clouds or any spheres in the sky, whatever. And I really, really like it. I'm only taking like a little bit of water at a time and a little bit of paint, and yeah, I think it's really nice. I guess the effect could be a lot nicer or more visible even if you use a white, black and white print and then use these Graphitint paints. I think I'm going to try that too on a more neutral paper. What I also like is when you have painted an area, you can take it back a little. If you're even in front of this subtleness, you're even afraid of that subtle paint, you can take something off with your finger or with a tissue. And as I was enlarging this for you, I wanted to show you the other decalcomania effect that the red paint gave me. Here you can see that it's obviously very different from the fluid paint decalcomania effect, and but still there's this structure of earth or clouds or whatever that the red decalcomania gave me. I think that's really remarkable. These paints work together so well. And here you see me just making some horizontal marks. That's also important to get a feel for the water ripples. And then I'm just pronouncing the grassy bits a little bit with the green color of the Graphitint. And again, you cannot tell that it's really a green. But I know it is a green, so that should be enough. And I look at this landscape and I thought, there's something missing. And if you know me, you know what's coming next. Yes, I'm turning it around and make a moon. That was just my spray bottle to use for the shape. I want a little bit of the grass in front of the moon, and I'm using the fineliner for that again. I'm coming in with the ocean blue again to fill in some shapes around the moon. Maybe it's not a moon. Maybe it's a sun. I don't know. And this is an eraser test. I thought because as it's graphite paint, it might be possible to erase it again, but it makes it just a tiny bit lighter, but it doesn't really work. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that test. And now you can really see the decalcomania the best, as I'm lightening up some parts of the moon with the white, actually quite a few parts. And of course there has to be a reflection of the white moon in the water. And a little more white all over the moon. I want it to stand out more. And the last thing I'm doing here is giving the little rocks or stones, or whatever they are, just a highlight, because the moonlight is touching them. And that's about all, I think. If you want more color in this, just use acrylics or watercolor or so. I don't know, the Graphitint is not for everyone. But you know, I like it monochrome and subtle. And what do you think? Tell me in the comments. Next week, I'll show you how I printed a landscape in space, combining etching ink and fluid acrylics. This one turned out really breathtaking for me. I can't wait to show you what I made of this wonderful print. See you next week.